Hi everybody and welcome to StashBlaster Quilts. My name is Maria Spatelnik and I am here to help you make more quilts in less time with less stress. So Donna has already put up a question in the chat. Yes, I do count as one of the people available for chatting. So unfortunately it's just you and me right now, I think. But no, actually there's someone else here too. But I do count as one of them as the broadcaster. Content creator, whatever you want to call me this week. So welcome everybody. It is November 2024. It is the day after the elections. So let me say here, no matter which way you voted, I hope you voted. And for those of you who are in the swing states, thank you so much for taking all of the attention. So I wasn't bombarded with 800 pieces of mail and all the visits and everything for the last 2 years. Thank you for taking that off our plates. Us here in Virginia, we saw very little of the candidates. But I, for one, am just glad it's over. I find personally that the whole process is completely nuts. And I'm always glad when it's over, no matter whether my side wins or my side loses. Doesn't matter to me. Just get it over with and go back to doing the people's work. So that's my point of view for what little it's worth. But thank you so much for joining me here. I know a lot of people are exhausted, so I truly, truly appreciate your time. So, I did get some sewing done in the last 3 weeks. A fairly small stack of flowers for the flower garden quilt. There's only 8 of them. Sorry. But doing the 1 per day that I'm aiming for, that's either finishing sewing an arc or applying an arc to a flower, because the flowers have been done for a while now. That's 16, and it's a little over 2 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since I've been here. I have done several more arcs. I just haven't applied them to the flowers yet, so it's not a complete unit yet. So I've at least met that goal. But the big thing is the group quilt. So, oops, sorry about that. I know that you're seeing a lot of my junk over here as well, but here is our 12 stars for this year's Block of the Month quilt. This month in November is to put in any sashing you want, or just assembling the blocks together to complete your quilt top. I have put background color sashing around each block, raising it from 12.5 unfinished to 14.5 unfinished. And then what I'm going to do is put a thin strip of yellow that I've pieced, oops, it'll be easier if I go back to this size, that I have pieced together like this in between my rows. And then I'm making a very long strip of this that I'm going to use as the binding. So there's going to be the diagonal stripes across the quilt, up and down the quilt, and then all the way around the quilt. And I'm going to put a piece of the background color, the light background color. I know it's hard for you to see here. You might be able to see here that there's this lighter color, or up here. I'm going to put this in my intersections. Now, I've chosen to go really thin. This looks bigger than it is. This is a 1.5 inch strip of paper, which means that my finished strip will be 1 inch, and the setting block will be 1 inch as well. And so my plan, oops, let's switch you back over and see if I use, hold on, it might be easier if I do it with this. I'm hung up, hold on. It's been a crazy few days, so what I'm going to do is attach a strip this way, like this. Then I'm going to attach the background square, the light colored background square, to another strip, and then I will sew it on like this on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks. And then I'll just put the bottom on the 3 in the corner. And then I'll be able to assemble my rows across and my verticals, and it'll all come out nice and clean and easy. And once the top is complete, next month will be quilting and binding, so I'll quilt it, and then I'll add the final strip around, and that will give me my yellow frame around all of the blocks. So I hope that that makes sense. So that is my plan for that quilt. So this month is getting your top finished. So in my case, I'm not only going to finish the top and get it assembled, but I'm also going to get that binding strip made. And so December, again, will be the quilting and the putting on of the binding. So when we meet again in 2 weeks, if this is your first time here, we meet the first and third Wednesday of each month. When we meet here again in 2 weeks, my top should be complete and I should be ready to quilt. So I want to get a little bit ahead on that, because as the lead here, I try to be slightly ahead so you can watch what's going on as it goes. So that's where we are. Now, this quilt was achieved by my asking those of you who are subscribers or followers what you want to see. So this year was a block of the month, last year was a mystery quilt, the year before was a 1 block. And so I put out a survey, and I told people you could either answer the survey, or if you don't like answering in it, you could go to my website and answer the questions there. And I just realized you can't see this. So I'm going to move this like this. Now hopefully you can see the email address. You can always email me at mail@StashBlasterQuilts.com. And so some people of you love to send me emails. There are some of you I get 4 and 5 emails a week. And since there's so few of you, I can answer them. But as things move on, I'll be able to answer less and less. But as of right now, there's only 55 of you. I can certainly answer. But some of you answered on email, and some of you answered on the survey, on, I think it was Survey Monkey. So I have a combination. It was due by the 31st. So I have gotten all the results. I have combined them and tallied them, and so we're going to talk about those tonight. So you have a clue of what's happening next year. And the idea is that whatever it is that we make is done, binding and all, by the end of the year. So you get to start off the new year with a new quilt. So that's what we're going to be doing. I have not fully designed this quilt yet. I still have time. But we're going to talk a little bit about what your answers were and what you can expect this year coming up. Okay? So let me get to that page so I can see it. Excuse me. Okay. So the first question is, do you enjoy the photos that I show of my trips, specifically the ones I use for inspiration? I'm kind of surprised because I got a different result last year. I had 100% of you say yes, you like seeing the photos of the trips. I may sprinkle in some other things other than just the inspirational stuff, but I'm very glad to see that. It was kind of a strange survey this year because either everybody picked one thing or you completely all picked different things as your options. So it was kind of interesting to compile them together. I asked if you prefer edited videos instead of the PowerPoint with the commentary, because one thing I could do is I could take the photos and things and do a PowerPoint, but have it edited so it's not so much me rambling and telling the stories as this is what this is and circles and do all that and really tighten it down, versus doing it live here with you. And everybody was split exactly evenly. So I think I'm going to continue with the live streams. I'm hoping to start putting out edited content, but if I can do it as part of the live stream, then I can be doing other things that maybe require tighter film focus and things for the edited content. Would you like a tour of my sewing room? 100% of you said yes. Right now, you kind of saw a little corner of my chaos going on over here. You're not getting one yet. Because of everything that's been going on, it's not going to start till next year. This is all for next year. I am also making some changes because my son has moved out of the house, and I am going to be moving some of my stuff to another room from different areas in my home. So I'm really going to have a 2-room studio, which is very cool. But things are kind of transitioning now, and I have guests for Thanksgiving. So when that is all over, I'm going to be able to start making some of those changes. So you'll get a sewing room tour next year, sometime next year. Did you like me sewing the block with you? 100% of you again said yes. So this was another thing where I had thought maybe doing some edited content where I could show sewing the block and then talk about it during the live stream. But you guys like seeing it happen. So I think some of you who've been around a while like seeing me do it because you get to watch me mess up occasionally. Well, not so occasionally. And then watch me get out of it. I think that for some of you that's the goal. And Jerry, I know you're one of them. So I will continue to sew in front of you. Good, bad, or indifferent. When I've been sewing with you, I've been using different colors than the pattern, partially to improve contrast for the live stream, and partially to make it so I don't wind up with multiple blocks of the same colors and settings and backgrounds and all that, because there's only just so many quilts I want to make in a year. And so I asked, was this confusing? Would you prefer to see it in the same colors, or should I continue using different colors? 100% of you again said to use different colors. Okay, I see there's a chat thing here, so hold on one second. I can pull over here. Oh, cool for the 2 rooms. Yeah, it's going to be very nice. This one will continue to be my actual sewing and filming, and there'll be some storage in here. But I'll be able to store my quilts themselves, my extra machines, my books at a easier to reach level, because right now they're up near the ceiling. So I'm going to be able to have a lot more storage in the other room. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, back to the survey. I said, in 2025, what type of project would you prefer? Check your top 3. And of all of you that responded, every single answer was chosen by a decent chunk of you. So I had the block of the month, like 2024, mystery, like 2023, one block, like 2022, using one block many times, improvisation, curves, scrap, limited number of fabrics, miniature, single block top where the entire quilt is only one block, and non-quilting projects. Every single one of these got responses. There's only 2 of them that poked their noses above the other 2. Above all of the rest. That was scrap and the single block top where the entire quilt is one block. So, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a single block quilt. Now the nice thing about this is that you'll be able to vary the size. So if you want a pillow, you can do that. It'll mean using tiny little strips. If you want to do a king-size bed, you just add on more rows. So that's what our option is going to be, and it's going to be as scrappy as you want it to be. You can make it pretty stark and not really scrappy, the design I have in mind, or you can use up all of your chip pieces and do it all with chip blocks. So I'm thinking it'll be kind of fun. What style of quilt would you prefer, traditional or modern? This is one of the only ones that wasn't tied. 1/3 of you wanted traditional, and 2/3 of you wanted modern. So we're doing it modern. What theme would you like? Stars, geometrics, or animals? We're all tied for first, followed by flowers, kids and families, and holidays. So we're going to be doing geometric. Geometric does tend to work better with the more modern style. So this quilt that we're doing next year will not only be fairly easy, this is going to be a beginner quilt. But the nice thing is again, making it whatever size you want is much easier to do with a geometric. So that's what we're doing. Most of you, 100% of you, chose that you wanted an intermediate level design. I can't make that happen with everything else with what I'm thinking. There is a more intermediate quilt that I'm interested in doing with you guys that is modern and a little bit scrappy, but I think it's too confusing to do on the live stream over the course of the year. It's the kind of a thing where if I did it and it was edited so you could watch the whole thing, it would make more sense. So this is, like I said, going to be beginner. I'm sorry, you all chose intermediate, and I think that I'm going to ignore that particular answer, just for this to be able to work the way that it needs to work. For 2025, what size based on the longest side would you prefer? So, I can't read this. Small, under 40 inches. Medium, 40 to 60. Large, 60 plus. Bed size, and doesn't matter to me. 100% of you picked doesn't matter to me. So, you'll be able to make it whatever size you want. And that was the last question on the survey. I do want to thank all of you who responded. I was really touched at how many of you did. But it was kind of funny to me how much it was either all or nothing. There was only a couple of things where it didn't split almost evenly. So that was the modern and traditional. So that tells me that you guys are kind of getting the same things out of this, and that'll make this a lot more fun, and hopefully more of you will participate in doing it. So that was the result of the survey for next year. Okay. Also for next year, I'm working on doing the sew-alongs. So I think that that is pretty much a guarantee that we're going to do at least a few of those. What I'll try to do is announce them here in advance. And then, of course, it'll be on the live stream like this. So you'll be able to, you'll get the notification that it's started. And then you'll be able to sew along. It's likely as well that sometimes you'll get the notification without warning. Because what I'm thinking I'm going to do is basically do a live stream whenever I'm sewing, as long as it's not on a client quilt. And so I'm looking at January. I'm often doing custom quilts, and because those kind of belong to other people and they may be gifts that they want to give later, I don't want to give away a surprise. Or if a client wants to take it from me and do the quilting and then claim the quilt, I'm perfectly fine with that. So again, I don't want there to be any question, confusion, or bad feelings. So why do I look so crooked? I'm just going to take this off. So I never show you the work that I do for clients. You get to see this kind of stuff because this is stuff I do for myself, my family, for sale, those kinds of things, which is very different. So I'm thinking in January that I won't take any commissions for quilts, because with my son getting married in February, I don't want to be pulling my hair out to meet a deadline for somebody else. And if I just don't take any quilts between now and then, that's not going to be a problem. So, hold on a second. I am currently working on a couple of quilts for clients. I want to give them for Christmas. I have to have... One is already scheduled with a long armor. It hasn't been delivered yet. I'm finishing it up now. And so that'll be done over the weekend. And then I'll be taking it to the Long Armor, and then they'll work on it, and then the client will have it by December. And then the second one they want me to quilt. So I'll have the whole thing completely done before Christmas. And that's the last two that I have right now. So luckily that clears my plate. So I only have my everyday job as a professional organizer and this YouTube channel that I'm doing with you guys, and some charity quilting. Because of hurricanes and that kind of stuff, I've given away all of my charity quilts that I had prepped for people. So I have a whole bunch of those to remake. And so I think that's the kind of thing that I'll be doing with you. But I'll be able to do that. Of course, that's a hope, because with the wedding coming up, I have no idea how much help, if any, the kids are going to need on that. The bride's parents live in Oregon, and I don't know how involved they're going to be, because they have another child being married in December. I thought it was November, but it's December. So there's only that 2-month gap, and so not knowing how involved they're going to be, I've offered. So they may suck me in on wedding planning or doing things for the wedding. So as of right now, I'm planning on January, when I'm at my machine, letting you guys be there with me, so you can kind of see how I process during the course of the month, and you can just watch these quilts, fall off the sewing table. But that's my plan. So hopefully you'll have a good time next year. I know that these "what am I doing this year" things normally are talked about in January, but if I'm going to let you know about stuff I'm doing in January, I kind of thought I needed to give you a heads up. So that's why I'm talking about all this now. If this is your first time here, this is a hexagon quilt that I made. I was doing some Zoom chatting, and so I brought the camera in a little bit closer, and I had this behind me. So that's why you're looking at one of my quilts today. We don't always have those up there. Okay, so have I covered everything? I think so. I think so. Now, today I'm going to be sewing these strips. I got the paper tape idea from Karen Brown of Get Her Done Quilts, and I think it's Get Her Done. No, is it? Hold on. I don't want to lie to you. And it's not like I don't do this all the time, and I go to her site all the time, but just all of a sudden I can't remember the name of it. And I don't want to lie to you. Yes, Just Get It Done Quilts. Karen Brown. She mentioned how she uses... Whoops. Didn't mean to close that. Hold on. Come on. Come back up. How she uses paper tape for doing strips for herself, for using up her scraps in chip form. So that's what I'm using here. I did have to cut mine down. The tape that I have I have a ton of it. It's 2 inches wide, and calculator tape. Let me make sure I tell you that. It's calculator tape. It's 2 inches wide. I wanted this to be 1.5, so I just cut a 1/2 inch off because I wanted it to finish at the 1 inch. But when you're dealing with your strips, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. Now, those of you who know me know what I'm going to say here. It's that I'm cheap. I have drawers full of processed with the fabric strips right across the room from me. And I'm using 1 and 1.5 here for this, for these strips that I'm making. I could just go to the drawer, pull out a bunch of those strips, and make this. Could have done it easy breezy, not a problem. Is that what I did? No. I have boxes of scrap. It's all sorted by color, over 5 inches and under 5 inches, and when I have time, I process it into strips, squares, bricks, and blocks. Well, bricks. Blocks are the squares, sorry. So, I could have taken the yellow scraps from this quilt top, which I did. I could have added already cut strips that I had, and just made it with a whole lot less effort. But no. What I've been doing is going through my under 5-inch scrap box of yellow and taking all of those scraps that have been washed on hot, dried on high, which is, I know, sinful for some of you, but the thing is, by doing that, I know I'm not going to get shrinkage. And a lot of people give me scraps, so I like to know that I'm not going to have uneven shrinkage when I wash. And then they get put in these boxes. So I take them out. I throw them in a bowl full of water. I don't bother spraying them with water. I just soak them, lay them out on the ironing board that I made, and I press them all. And then I'm cutting the size strips that I need out of these really weird, odd scrap pieces. Anything that's less than 2 inches is going into this project. But because I also do the strips, I'm only taking ones less than 12.5. I mean, I'm really giving myself a lot more work, but it also means that my scraps are processed at the same time. So they're going to be going into the drawers over there, anything that's not what I'm using here. So I'm kind of trying to do 2 or 3 things at the same time. So, okay, so today you'll get to do this with me. But when you take your paper tape, you're going to be sewing the next strip on so that the 1/4 inch sewing line is, actually, let me move camera 3 into range. It got moved out of the way. All right, hold on. Its cable does not want to let go. And I have not yet replaced these overhead lights, so the lighting in here is really weird. Okay, so let me switch cameras. This is going to have to hang off the paper a little bit so that when you are doing your 1/4 inch seam, it starts prior to the paper and then sewed all the way to the end of the paper, and it hangs off a little bit. As you go, you can trim off this excess. I'll usually wait 2 or 3 times after they've been pressed and we've done that, and then I'll trim it. But you can do it each time if you want to. It doesn't matter if it's perfect, because I'm ultimately going to trim it even with the paper, and that will give me the perfect 1.5 inch strip, even though it's got all of these pieces on the bias. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. So let's go ahead and do some sewing. So I'm going to move the camera again. Okay. Now I've already sewn some of these on. If you can notice it here, hold on, I'm trying to get where you can see me. Okay. I did draw some 45-degree angles on here just to make sure that I'm not too far out of whack when I'm adding these strips on. Plus, when I'm doing the binding, it's really more work than it's worth. But I started it in multiple spots rather than just starting it at one end, so I could add a lot more strips before pressing. I did learn one thing though. Not all of my paper tape is adding machine tape. How do I know that? Because this one is thermal. So when I press it, it turns black when I press the fabric. Now, I did check this on the lightest yellow fabric that I have, and none of the black transfers to the fabric. So that's why I'm continuing to use this. If it had done that, I would have just thrown that roll away and gone to the regular adding machine tape. So in this particular case, I have one strip here with multiple starting spots. So I can just keep adding strips on. And then when it gets to the middle, I'll just tear the paper, sew those two strips together, and we'll be set. But this was a surprise to me the first time I went to press, and I got this big black swoosh on there. I will tell you that my heart stopped for a moment, but overall it was fine. It did startle me. So your best option is adding machine tape. Okay, so I do have a bunch of these, and I was doing some sewing before we started, so I'm going to do some pressing, and then we'll do some sewing. When I get to the end, like with this one, all I have to do is make sure that this triangular piece, let me switch cameras, it'll be easier for you to see here. The triangular piece here, get a little further away, there we go. That this triangular piece here is going to more than cover the paper when I press it. That's all that matters. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to line up exactly. So you can see here it's not lining up with this particular corner. Doesn't matter, as long as that's covered, that's all that counts. So, I have to rearrange things a little bit here because I need to move the flowers, I have to move some of this other stuff. Here's my other piece of adding machine tape. Now this one I haven't actually started doing any sewing on yet. Now, if you sew the strip on and you go to press it and it doesn't cover the paper tape, you may need to go ahead and pick it out. Alright, seam rip it. It is quite likely that your paper will tear along the perforations that you made with your sewing machine. So, if that happens, don't worry about it. You can always tape the two pieces together. So when I get to this later, I'll just take the other piece that goes like this, line them up together, okay, tape them, and move along, okay? One thing that you can also do is just make sure that they're aligned, and then just sew the seam between the two strips and you'll be fine. So it's really easy. It's a great tool. I'm so glad that she taught this because I haven't found anything that makes it easier to do bindings or borders or anything along those lines where you're trying to put either chip pieces or stripes together than doing it on paper. And it's already pre-cut to 2 inches, so if that's what you want, that's great. If you want 2.5, just make sure that when you trim your fabric off that you start it far enough up and you let it go far enough down that you'll wind up with a 2.5 inch finished strip. That's fine too. Okay? Alright. Now, the one thing about this technique is that you're always adding on the next strip, which means you're always pressing that strip over on top. So that's where your seam lines are going to be. It does mean that if you have a light yellow on top of a darker yellow and you iron it over, you may find that you can see that seam. When you're done, if that bothers you, you can take the paper off. You can simply press the seam the other way. However, that's going to give you a little dog ear at the top. You'll need to trim that as well. Of all the things that could happen, that's not so bad, right? Okay, so I'm getting my iron going. This particular iron does not like to stay hot. It turns itself off a lot. Okay, so I'm going to spin you around, so hold on. I'm going to switch the camera now that I've spun it, and hopefully you can see okay. There we go. Again, I have a clean pillowcase on top of my little mini ironing board here. If this is your first time here, I use a pillowcase, and it just sits on top of this silver fabric folding table. There's a little bit of batting under there. The reason that I do this is so that I can easily change this out whenever it starts to get dirty. I do a lot of work with white, and so it'll start to be where the steam can cause problems with mold or bacteria in your cover, or cause other staining, and then those stains can transfer onto your white fabrics. And I really dislike that. So by doing it this way, I can make sure I always have a clean ironing surface and go from there. Now I'm either putting one or two 1-inch strips between my 1 1/4. Now, if I wanted to just go full scrappy and just use any sizes, you can do that too. I'm choosing to do 1 and 1 1/2 inch strips here, but you could use triangular pieces. You could just trim to whatever size. As long as you have at least 3/4 of an inch, this will work. But keep in mind, the more seams that you have, particularly on the binding, which is where I gave this the most thought, particularly on the binding, then that's more pieces that have to go over the edge and potentially be in the corner to fight with. So for me, I didn't want to go less than an inch. I didn't want to go any bigger than 1 1/2. If you make it beefier, you can go to whatever size. I have done strips that have been 4 and 5 inches to put into a border. There's nothing wrong with that. Just in this particular case, I didn't like how that was going to look. Okay? So let's get back to pressing. Okay. So I have a whole bunch of these because if I can get all of my sides, so on this block there'll be just the one on the right, but when I'm doing this, the advantage is going to be I'll be able to do them all at once, which will be nice. It'll save me time and energy. Plus, I can accomplish more sewing in a row. So I will sew all of these, and I usually will do both sides, and then I press, and then I sew both sides, and then I press. So it's more efficient. Today I'm not doing that because if I do that, you can't see as well. So this is just a YouTube content change. Okay, so here, this particular, oops, I keep forgetting which camera on here. This started to tear. Okay, I don't care. It's perfectly fine. I'll just lay this down, fold this over and press it, and I could put a little piece of tape on the other side of this, a little Scotch tape if I wanted to, but it'll be fine even if I don't. We're pressing here, not ironing. Okay, it may look like I'm gliding across the fabric, but I'm not. And I normally set these aside and don't touch them until they've cooled. But again, I'm trying to do these in front of people, which makes it a little bit more of a challenge. So here's that corner piece I showed you. So I'm just going to lay that back, finger press it, and then hit it with the iron. I like just double checking here that the rest of this stays flat with another quick press. And so that's the whole end of the piece. So I only have this part to do. These strips were cut to the 14.5 inch size that I need. So I can go right to the end, and when I trim up, I'll know that it's already the finished size that I want, and it'll be ready to go onto the squares. We'll be adding the slashing instructions to the website. I wasn't going to, but I might. Wicked spell checker. Oh, slashing instead of sashing. I love that. That's great. So I wasn't planning on it. It's something that I do a lot, and so I talk about it a lot here. But it is something that I could add at some point. Um, Probably not this week. My husband is getting his Metaport out tomorrow. Um, for those of you, again, first timers or you haven't been here long, this last January, it's now November, my husband was diagnosed with cancer, so they inserted a Metaport for doing his chemo. And then they had to take it out and put it on the other side. And then he's finally getting it out tomorrow. He will be a much happier man because when he's done healing for the month, then he'll hopefully start feeling a little bit more normal because he's got this big lump and it has shifted. So you can actually see not only the outline of it, it's like it's trying to get out on its own. So it's pressing out against his skin, and you can see the outline, and you can see the dots that they use to orient before they jab the needle in. I mean, he's really not happy about it. So he gets to get it out. So we're very happy about that. But that's tomorrow. And so, I'm taking it for that. There's a bunch of other stuff coming up. So I'm not sure when, but I will try to do a little something. But that's also why I wanted to do it here. So those of you who are following along will be able to see that. I should probably post something on the website that if you look at today's, you can learn how I do this. That I can post that for sure, because that's just a little quick blurb on the annual quilt tab. If you have not been here for all of these blocks, if you go to StashBlasterQuilts.com, at the top there's an annual quilt tab. You go into that and you can see each year for the last couple years. I didn't do the first one. And get all of your instructions. So blocks 1 through 9 are on there. So I could put the instructions there, but it is so simple that I don't think you even need it. The cool thing is that if you were using the same thing, so here's a blank one. Okay, again, cut to the 1.5, and you just wanted to use whatever scraps you have around. You start the first one facing up, and then the rest of them you layer face to face and then fold back, just like anything else that you were sewing. But you could use any little strips you have that are large enough when they fold back. So in this particular case, this would not work on the slant. It's not quite long enough. But if this is square, like this, it most certainly is. Okay? So if you want to use just random scraps, again, not the strips, but just whatever it is that you have, this works great. And one of the nice things about it is I like to take, let's say, 2 pieces like this that are just in my random scraps, and I'll sew them together like this. Okay? Okay? They're floppy. There's no rigidity there. And I might sew another piece on here or something, and I tend to build out pieces of fabric. But as it gets bigger, you tend to start getting rippling. So what you could do is you could take smaller blocks of this, and then, let's say, 3 inches by 6 inches, and you could stitch it onto this, like so, and then put another oddball combination chip block that you have on top and work your way down. And this gives you that stability that keeps it from warping as you're growing it out. And it also never seems to fail. If I'm just trying to sew strips together, I start to go uphill. Kind of like when people write without lines, a lot of people either go uphill or downhill. This will make sure that you're going to have a strip the right size when you're done, and you've accounted for your seam allowance, which is nice. So what if you want to put in a 4-inch sash? Well, you can take all your chips and put them together, and you can tape 2 of these together. Your sewing machine, I've been asked this a few times. While your sewing machine does not tend to like glue in its needle, Scotch tape doesn't seem to bother it as much. But if you're worried about it, you could sew the end, tape down in little sections, and then remove those sections, because then the next one down will hold them square. And you could do that if you want to make sure you didn't sew through any tape. If you're going to remove it, then when you put it on, fold over the end a little bit. And that gives you a little handle so you're not trying to pick the tape loose. And so, here, I'll show you what I mean, because I may not be speaking very clearly. Now this is painter's tape instead of Scotch, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so this is what you have to do to start a piece of tape, right? If it's not in a dispenser. So if this was Scotch tape, when I was tearing off a little piece to tape my strips together, right, I would fold one end over just a little bit. Okay? Now it's more here so you can see it. Then when I go to tape things together, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to tape these two pieces together, like so, right? This little tab here isn't going to stick anywhere, and I'll be able to pull this right off. Actually, that didn't make a lot of sense the way I did it, so let's do it this way. So it's all on the paper, okay? This little tab is not going to adhere because I've got the back side of the tape here, and I can pull this off and not have to fight with it. If you're trying to pick those little edges on your Scotch tape, you're more likely to tear the paper and warp the fabric on the other side. So that's just a little tip whenever you're doing tape. When we do tape for packing clients, we'll do the same thing. And my clients love it because when they get to the other end, they can just find the end that has not even a 1/4 of an inch, even an 1/8 of an inch. Usually it's a 1/4, but they can find that little tab and just pull the tape right off. It's so much easier than cutting it or trying to pick that end loose. So, so if you had two of these, you could tape them together and just go that way. And you're going to be able to get your final size, and you're going to be confident that you haven't come in short. A lot of times with chip blocks, people get worried that their block is going to be just that little bit short in a couple of spots, and they're going to have to figure out some way to piece another little chip in, and then how is it going to sew? You're going over that. Is it going to pull loose? Putting in a guide, an automatic determinant, means you don't have to worry about that. And so that's a really handy thing to have. Again, you will have to make the choice. Do I want to have the 1/4 inch on both sides of the tape so I finish at the tape's width? Or do I want to trim up to the tape width and then lose my 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides to get my finished size? But these things work really easily. And so I use them all the time. I also, for big ones, like, here we go. You can't see, hold on. I'm trying to get so you can see it without me being annoying. I'll just pull it down. I move this wall around a lot because there's closet doors behind here, so these actually are pinned on. So here you can see. So this one, this block was done. I made squares of strips and then I cut them on the diagonal. So these center strip, I marked on a piece of newsprint where it went on both sides. And then I just layered these strips on. I sewed the white to the blue, and then I just added them on to a piece of newsprint. The kind that you buy when you're moving. And so there's no actual print on it, but it's the kind of paper that some newspapers are printed on. Excuse me. Excuse me. So I sewed it onto this, and I had drawn out my 12.5 inch square. So when I laid strips on there, I knew that they were going to be the right size when I trimmed it up. And I had excess on the edges. And so then I could trim this right to the 12.5. I left the paper on. Um, for two reasons. Number one, so I could show you guys in a situation like this, but also when I went and I sewed the blocks together, all of those seams did not pull apart and warp my outer edge. So it was very easy for me to sew this to the next block and have it stay stable. And then this stuff comes off so easily, it's not funny. This just pulls off super easy, and it's cheap. Okay? You can buy a box of newsprint at any moving company, and you just, it's like, I think it's 18 inches by 24 approximately, and they use them to wrap glasses and that kind of stuff. But you can get a lot of blocks out of one, and you can buy them in packs of 100. So what I've done a lot of times, I have a couple of quilts that I'm making that use big blocks, and so I'll cut out like a 14 or 16 inch square, and then I cut out several other sizes at the same time that go in my stack on my wall, and then if I ever need like a 5-inch newsprint square, it's already there. I don't do every size like I do on the strips, but in that particular case I do. There's like 3 sizes that I do: 14 and a half, 12 and a half, 9 and a half, 6 and a half, and 5, I think I did. I don't remember right now. I haven't done it in forever because I have a stack of them over there. But again, you can make chip blocks, and then when they start to get a little wonky, just stitch them onto a piece of newsprint like this. And the nice thing is you can do it, with a basting stitch, and then what happens is you just pop that out, pull it, and you can reuse it if you want to, but remember, you're going to be perforating it. But it will keep things nice and neat and clean, and it'll keep you square. And staying square makes doing stuff with these tiny pieces that I do so much easier, so much less work. And it's a time saver. It's a huge time saver. And that's one of the things that we're talking about here, right? Is how to do this and save yourself time and stress. So this is StashBlaster 2. I'm having trouble with the website getting everything up and running. I'm still working on it, amongst everything else that's exploded in my life. So this may not be up yet, but it's a very simple design. So again, chip blocks or these slashed blocks, using the slashing instructions, the sashing, you can do whole blocks this way and then be able to very easily sew them together. I did a whole bunch of improvisational quilts, quilt blocks for a senior living facility I was teaching a quilting class at, and we did it all this way. It was so much easier for the residents because the stuff wasn't slipping and sliding. Okay, and so I'm throwing it on the floor because that's what I have to do at the moment. And let's switch back to camera 3 for some more ironing. Pressing, excuse me. Okay, that's a done one. That doesn't help. Okay, so if this is your first time here, this is kind of how it goes. I normally start with a tip of the day kind of thing, because I am a professional organizer. But my tip was using the strips, the tape, and I should have announced that's what the tip was for this time, but that's really what it was. So just before we came on, I was sewing this. I do start about 15 minutes before the start at 7, because I know a lot of you like to grab a cup of coffee or soda or wine, no judging here, so that you have it handy while we're doing this. And so I like people to have a heads up, because it never fails if there's a class that I want to watch that I'm running behind schedule And if I want to go to the bathroom or get something to drink, I am woefully late and missing the beginning part of the class. So I don't like to do that. And so I want to make it easier for you guys. So that's why I start the 15 minutes early. But the actual action doesn't start until 7. If you've had a good time, please feel free to like, subscribe, do all of that kind of stuff. I am hoping to build this up over the next few years into a vibrant, chatty community. So you're also welcome at any point to put comments or questions in the chat. You can also email me at mail@StashBlasterQuilts.com, and I will respond to those. So let's do, I'm trying to switch the camera. I know that we're almost out of time, and I do try to respect your time, but I do want to show you a little bit of sewing. I had way too many of these under the machine, and so I wound up having to cut them off. Normally I just keep going. I have a box on the far side of my sewing machine on the floor. You can't quite see it here, but all of my stuff falls into the box, which then makes it very easy for me to pick it up and grab it and take stuff downstairs to sew. So here's my white paper, and so this is going to go on past the paper. I want to know that my 1/4 of an inch, which I'm eyeballing is going to be right about there, is on the paper. Then I just line up with the previous strip. Under my presser foot. And done. Okay? So let's pick another one. Alright. So, oh, this one is really getting close. Okay, so here I'm at the corner. Let me see if I have a corner piece here. So this is just an extra piece of triangle from one of the blocks. And so that'll be fine. Do I want to put it this way or do I want to put it the other way? Let's put it this way. So I know that it's more than enough. I just plop it on there. Slide forward a little bit. Down. I'm not pinning. You can if you want to, but it's going to take you an awful lot of pins and an awful lot of time if you decide that you're going to pin an entire quilt's worth of sashing. These do not need to be perfect. If you're close, that's all you need to worry about. Okay. Now, with the 1.5 inches wide, you need a longer strip because it has to go further down. So the first couple of them that you do, audition them against the strip, including the fact that you do have to offset uphill a little bit. You can't just lay it on and go, oh, that's enough from here to here, I just fit. Because you do have to go back that 1/4 of an inch, so you're going to have this little peak here at the top. Alright, one more, since we only have 2 minutes left. And a quick stitch. And it's done. Alright, this is going to be one of the ones that's going to basically finish this off, this strip. When this is pressed over, you can see it covers some of this white. Okay, you can actually see it through. Here, can I get closer? No, let's move all that. So you can see the paper right here. Let me get it here. There you go. You can see the paper right here. So I know that that's covered, and I can use an even smaller triangle to do this last little bit here at the top. Okay? So, I hope you all had a good time. I like to make sure that I honor your time. It is just now 8 o'clock, so I'm going to sign off. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and hopefully you will see that my quilt top is done at that point. May not be, but it should be pretty darn close. And then your goal for this month is going to be to finish your top. All right? Take care, everybody. Have a great couple of weeks, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. No, it's still saying we're live. Exit. There we go.